Go love your own enemies. Don't be loving mine. My enemies are the theocratic fascists. I don't love them. I want to destroy them.
You're a child made in the image of God. Oh no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join your church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman.
Okay, you're going to have to use your imagination for this video because I cannot read 197 notes. Just can't do it. This would be like an hour-long video if I did that. Okay, so this is a thread from a video called, I have to go to the very top. Warning, this might shake up your belief system. Can you handle this? By You Are Creators. Yes, and this is a very long thread that I have actually used bits from for other videos because there's a lot of bits in this video. In this thread, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here. So, but the latest stuff is classic. If you go to videos, what is the word? Video keep popping up into my brain. Okay, thread. If you go to the end of this thread and read just like the last 2 days, yes, the stars of this thread are, well, I'm in it. Also, Pat last name T-U-H, who I mentioned in a previous video. Brooklyn Ragtag is another one that is in this thread. I really encourage you guys to go to this video and go down to, I'm trying to find the very first note. The very first note, the one that has all the replies, is by David Vasquez. And it says, I sincerely feel bad for non-believers. God is very obvious. And it has 24 likes. Oh yeah, all the little Christians are just, he's so obvious. Oh yeah, I can't believe all these poor pathetic people who don't understand that. Anyway, so this thing has, like, let me see. I have to read this. I have to go back to see how many replies. You'll understand why I can't read all the replies when okay, so you can tell that I really make a lot of effort to put this together. Well, 195 replies. Yeah. Okay, so you have to click on where it says view all 195 replies and then scroll down, a long way. I would recommend, well, you can read the whole thing. There's a lot to it. It's an interesting thread, but I would recommend reading like the last 2 days. So what's today, the 27th and the 26th of July. And Anonymous One is another one who writes in this thread. Now, what is the gist of the thread? For those of you who don't feel like reading is, Pat Tuh, okay, has very, I tend to write long replies. I do. I write long replies. So does he. It's another reason why I'm not going to read all the long replies. He writes very long ones. And he goes on and on about, you know, basically whatever. No evidence, doesn't show any evidence, just, oh, well, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. He's saying all these things to everybody, what they're doing wrong and what they should be doing and how blah, 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 blah. You know, you've heard it all before stuff. There's a lot of it, okay? And then what happens today? He snaps. And he starts to play the blame game. And that's my little word I just came up with. The blame game. When the Christian is to the point where they just give up. They've done everything they can. They've spouted off every verse, every little Christian whatever approved, Christianity approved verse in the Bible that they can, or whatever, you know, they've argued as much as they can without producing any evidence at all. They get to the point where they just give up. They just give up. They've given it the best shot, you know, they've given it, you know, they've thrown themselves into the whole attempt to convert the non-believer, the stubborn non-believer. They've done everything they can do without actually showing evidence for any of their claims. They've done it all, except for showing evidence for their claims. And then when they don't succeed and the non-believer continues to not believe, what do? Do they yell and scream and have a temper tantrum? Yeah. In this guy's case, yeah. But they also blame the person that they haven't been able to convince. It's like a car salesman trying to sell a car to somebody, and when the guy doesn't want the car, the guy goes off on him and calls him, you're just so fucking ignorant. You don't, if you saw this car the way I saw it, you just have to open your mind up to the teachings I'm telling you about this car, and you would see it's a wonderful car, and you would take this car and accept it and drive it away and be happy. But, you know, you're so stupid, you won't believe what, you don't see what I see about this car. That's what they do. They try to sell, they try to sell their line of goods, their little con. And when it doesn't succeed, when they don't succeed because their God doesn't give them enough tools to convince the person who requires more than just hearsay and what a book says, then they go off on the person because they require more than just hearsay and what a book says. Oh, you don't know anything. Your mind is closed. You have a demon in you. I mean, whatever they say, they go off at the person that they have failed a few hundred times. They have failed to convince. They attack the person they have failed to convince. It's that person's fault. Oh no, I tried. I gave it my very best. I'm so good. I know the Bible so well. I'm the knowledgeable one and they're so ignorant. My interpretation of the Bible is true and theirs is wrong. All the things I have studied is correct, and all the things they've studied is so wrong. It's all their fault. The fault is theirs. Never mind that, you know, if my God existed, he would know exactly what it would take to get them to believe. I guess he didn't talk through me. He should have talked through me. You know, if God really wanted those people to believe, he would have filled my mouth with exactly the right words. But I guess he didn't do that. Or he would have given some kind of sign. He would have manifested himself in some way so that they could actually see, oh my gosh, he does exist. But he didn't. God didn't manifest himself. God didn't provide me with any actual evidence that I could show this person who requires evidence in order to believe. You know, God did create people like that. God did create people that actually require evidence to believe things, that need a little bit more than just hearsay and the fact a book says so or a cult says so. There are people that need more than just that. And if God exists, he created people like that. But what does he do? How does he provide for those people? Does he provide the evidence? Does he provide some kind of, what does he give that little piece that's missing from the puzzle to help that person who needs a little bit more believe? No. Anyway, so that's the gist of what I want to say about this video. This is what happens in this thread. This guy does all this stuff. Everybody's wrong. He's right. You're not looking at the Bible right. You're not looking at God right. You're not looking at Christianity right. Everybody who has Jesus in their heart are able to do all these wonderful things, and they're just filled with compassion and all these virtues. And it's because they have Jesus. And it's a lot of hard work too. It's not just talking. It's a lot of hard work. That's the gist of the stuff that he says in this thing. In this big, unbelievably long thread with all these unbelievably long posts that he puts down, right? That's what he says, essentially. And when he fails to convince the various people he's talking to, Brooklyn Ragtag, Anonymous One, and myself, he goes off. He goes off. Let's see. Let's read some of those, shall we? Yeah, this is what he writes to me. Yeah, I can see why after so many years of study you still don't understand the Bible or the message of Jesus. I also mentioned how the message of the Bible is used to manipulate and gain material and power. That's the fault of people, not the Bible or God. Thanks, though. I'm done with you haters. If you choose to be ignorant, that's your problem. Try focusing your energy on yourself instead of projecting rage outwards at a book. The Bible doesn't care if you don't like it, and neither do I. If you couldn't see the good in it, that's also your problem and no one else's. Lastly, the Bible doesn't manipulate people. People do. I felt I had to put that in obvious terms for you. Let's talk down. Let's talk down to our audience. Yeah, little kid, I had to put it in obvious terms just for you. You speak about reality, but your perception is far from it. Peace be with you truly. That's a little condescending little bit that he puts at the end of every one of his little posts. So patronizing. Okay. So then Brooklyn Ragtag writes, and I have to say that's just the beginning of his Pat 2's temper tantrum. It gets worse. Okay, Pat 2. The problem is that it's too easy to manipulate people with a book if you can convince them that it's more than just a book. Critical thinking is really important, and lack thereof can have tangible consequences. I can only speak for myself, but it's important for me that you know that I'm not a hater toward believers. I'm addressing the claims, and I find the claims interesting and unsupported. I'm open to changing my position on that, but you haven't done anything to support your position. Anonymous One writes, there is no God. The God is within you and every one of us. There are no miracles except the miracles we create. There are no such thing as coincidence except the coincidence we conjure and create and believe is coincidence. When one person believes in something, everyone calls him crazy. But when everyone believes in what that person believes, it's a religion. It's a means of control and divide against all of humanity. A lot of people believe in a religion as a means of faith to move on in life, yet in the end it's the belief in yourself that has kept you moving on. It's a system that has been created to divide us all and truly make us forget who we really are. Okay, so here's Pat 2 again, Pat 2. I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering his name. This is a very long note. And this is more of his tirade. He's writing to Brooklyn Ragtag. You are ignorant too much that I have done that does support my position, that if you let God and the teachings of Jesus into your heart and mind, you will be free of animal desire, the deadly 7. Faith is all that elevates us above our animal minds. Excuse me. Faith in our potential and the ability to diligently demonstrate the teachings of Jesus every day for the betterment of all. When did I speak of miracles? In the Bible, they are symbols for the greatest good, not some supernatural phenomenon. You're so literal. You think the Bible is a paint by numbers to faith. You speak of critical thinking, but you demonstrate none. All that I have said is supported by my life and the lives of people who can truly understand the word, excuse me, and his message. There are so many examples you see every day. Of course, these are all Christians now that he's mentioning. They can possibly be atheists or Hindu or Muslim or Wiccans. The man who stays his anger through understanding, who is generous through compassion, who lifts others up through humility, and on and on. These acts are not easy, but for those who practice, they come naturally through the Word of God reflected in the teachings of Jesus. That's right. So unbelievers are apparently unable to be any of those things. Your science and professional scientists, most esteemed in their disciplines, and then he lists a bunch of them. And these are just the ones I believe you are familiar with, because apparently he's, again, talking down to his audience. He obviously knows so many more, but his audience wouldn't know those other people. The famous physicists and mathematicians of today's age, throughout recorded history, have only been able to proclaim the same. I'm not going to go through every gospel to expound the symbolism of them for you and explain what you believe to be supernatural as the symbolic narrative it is. I demonstrate, excuse me, close the door because my dog's barking is driving me crazy. Okay, so where was I? To say that I claim isn't supported in reality is willful ignorance, and I cannot help that. There is fear in your words. It takes courage to truly look at the self deeply and intimately. I don't blame you, but please don't spread lies and say this is merely a belief. At the very least, it is the most productive and positive way of life there is. As I see, you have produced no better example on your own, nor has your science. To agree that God is a monster is to only see the monster in yourself. Have courage and faith, and you will conquer it. Lastly, your literal understanding of the Bible puts you at the same level of contemplation and understanding as the creationists. For someone who claims to be a supporter of science with such an obvious narrow intellect is laughable. I'm not saying this to be mean, but to open your eyes to how contradictory your entire perspective is. When you have looked into yourself truly and deeply and cast out the demons, natural negative tendencies and biases you unconsciously carry because you haven't acknowledged them fully in your mind, then come tell what you think of spirit, soul, God, and Jesus' message and how your life has changed. As you have clearly, by observation of your muddled perspective, have not even attempted to do so for lack of physical proof. The proof is in yourself if you are willing enough to take the help you need to consciously realize it. This is the most help I can give you. Furthermore, this dialogue has come full circle, as I find we are both repeating ourselves and will not comment further. Peace be with you and always. And then he writes to Anonymous One, if there is no God, then how can something that doesn't exist be anywhere? All you detractors cannot even see how contradictory you are. And then you say you are people of science. I highly doubt any of us have said that. Lastly, religion is a means to unity as much as it is a means to division. The difference is how people use their faith. Its true purpose is inclusiveness. Yeah, especially toward gays. Even of the difference in how people use their even of the bad. If you don't understand this, then your understanding of religion is still infantile. Oh yes, let's put down our audience some more. I'm not commenting further, as you naysayers have no wish to be guided, because you are all so self-righteous. Peace be with you. Okay, now here's me being a total bitch. You ready? Are you ready for Diane being a bitch? Because here it comes. I went off on him. Okay, my first note. I have said all my special magical words my cult has given me to say, and for some strange reason still your eyes haven't glazed over and you haven't started drooling at the mouth or mindlessly nodding your head believing. My God doesn't give me what it takes to get you to believe, which he knows of perfectly well because he's all-knowing. Stuff like actual evidence he exists. No, all I have is my little magical words and special sentences I'm supposed to say, and now that they haven't had the desired effect, I'm going to rail at you and insult you and blame you because I have failed, and my magical words the cults have given me have failed. Now I'm going to stomp my feet and have a huge baby tantrum over it rather than walk away like a grown-up would. Wah! I wrote, I am a hater. I don't hate the people, but I do hate the cult that lobotomizes grown adults into this absurd, stunted behavior. Okay. Then I read, I went back and read a couple things because I have kind of tried to ignore this thread because, you know, when I read anything in this thread, I end up making a video like I'm doing right now. He wrote me a little thing. Actually, David Vasquez had written me something. I guess I'm going off topic. Maybe I won't read this. Okay, I'll just throw this in here. David Vasquez wrote me, well, if God doesn't exist, then how did the whole concept of God come to exist in the first place? I wrote, sorry I missed this. Some primitive people were hiding in their cave one night and a ball of fire lanced across the sky, and they huddled in terror. The wisest of them stood up and said, there's a big man in the sky and he is angry with us. Let us slaughter and not eat our best lamb to appease him. So they did. And by some amazing coincidence, a ball of fire did not lance the sky the next night. So the primitives decided they were onto something big. Something scary happens. They need to sacrifice something to appease the big, unseen, scary thing hurtling the destruction upon them. I would say that is a very likely guess as to how the primitive superstition of God belief started. I find it very hard to believe that to this day we have grown adults shaking beads and looking skyward, hoping to communicate or appease or connect with this big man in the sky. When I think about it, I feel very discouraged that humanity will ever truly crawl out of the cave and primitive fear of our ancestors. This is me writing to him, to Pat too, when he said that, you know, my interpretation. I clearly study the Bible not enough. I wrote, oh really? Because my interpretation of the stupid book doesn't agree with yours, that means I am the one that's ignorant and without knowledge? Of course, it's not you, right? It couldn't possibly be you, no. Okay. And my last little note to Pat. Yes, just let the teachings fill you up, Brooklyn Ragtag. Don't question. Don't ask for more than my little magical sentences. Just mindlessly believe, and you'll see. You'll start drooling at the mouth too, and seeing the whole world through the restrictive filters of this little book and my beliefs. Or the beliefs that my cult creates. You'll start seeing everything as black and white. You are either in God's army or Satan's army. And who cares that there are no evidence whatsoever of either of these? You'll gain the ability to know which sentences in our little book are magical and which ones it's okay to ignore. Like the sentence commanding us to hate gays, that's a magical sentence. But the others in Leviticus, we can ignore all those because Jesus came. Again, no evidence that Jesus actually ever lived, but hey, you just let the teachings fill you up. You won't even care about stuff like that anymore. So, okay, that's basically how I ended my little part of this whole thing. It just seems to me that he goes on and on and on. He's putting down people, everything that anybody tries to contribute to the conversation. Oh, you just don't understand. Oh, you don't understand that the Bible is this way. And if you just opened your mind up, you would know that. And then when he fails, he like, wow, I'm not going to post anymore. I'm just out of here. You guys, I've tried. You're just blind. Come back to me when you don't have your demons anymore, and we'll talk then. You know, this is like the blame game. Christians pull. They don't blame the God that doesn't help them turn the unbeliever to belief. They don't blame the God for not talking through them and filling them with words of wisdom that couldn't possibly come from a human being. No, they don't blame the God for causing some kind of sign that is not explainable by nature to happen, or just showing in some way, shape, or form some kind of evidence that, I mean, the God knows everything, so he should know what that unbeliever would need to believe. but he doesn't provide it. So the poor Christian who's trying to convert the unbeliever doesn't blame the God for giving him ineffectual tools. Doesn't blame the God. Doesn't blame himself for failing. Well, I guess I don't have what it takes to convert this person. Doesn't blame himself. He blames the person that he can't convince, you know? Like the car salesman who can't get somebody to sell a car, trying to blame the customer because he has failed to sell the car. It's ridiculous. They turn on unbelievers and blame unbelievers and rail against unbelievers for not believing when they have failed to convince. And they don't have, and how they have is a stupid book and words. And I tell you this based on my life and my experiences, and they're real. And all these scientists and mathematicians and learned men are just proclaiming the same thing. Right. Argument from authority. Right. And if you really dig deep, you'll find out that these so-called scientists and mathematicians and physicists aren't proclaiming that at all. Oh, but we're going to pretend that they do, or we're going to twist things around to make it sound like they do. Anyway, so this is just me having a little bit of a rant. I don't know how good this video will turn out, but... Oh, and I wanted to say one more thing. See this? Okay. See that? See how that... Isn't that weird? Isn't that horrible? It's horrible. What is this called? There's a scientific word for this, but this is called trigger finger. That's why I have this brace. I didn't get my finger mangled. It hasn't been chewed on by one of my lizards. I didn't have it run over by a truck. I have trigger finger in my little finger, and it's very annoying. It doesn't really hurt. Sometimes it kind of hurts a little bit, but anyway, it can come from typing. It can come from typing kind of jobs. It's kind of like carpal tunnel syndrome. It's along that kind of thing. It's an injured tendon in my finger, and since I don't have insurance, I can't go to the doctor. A lot of times it requires surgical correction, and I don't have insurance. So I have read things. I read to rest it for a couple weeks, take anti-inflammatories. I also found something on YouTube, some exercises that after I rest it for a while, I'm going to try doing that are supposedly going to work. But anyway, so that's what this is all about. I have trigger finger. I'm resting the finger. It's not injured. Well, it is injured, but it's not. So that's what it is. So anyway, that's all. I guess that's it. I just ran out of steam. I have things to do. So if you've been watching, thanks. Bye.
I am absolutely convinced that the main source of hatred in the world is religion. And I think it should be religion treated with ridicule and hatred and contempt.